So you're done with zone two, as was I, probably about, let's say, about a year ago. I've done all the readings, and they're good readings, don't get me wrong. And the method's definitely correct. You should do a lot of this work. However, for me, my background, it's very much, I'm a very driven, very competitive kind of person. So zone two is very you versus you could say, and it works incredibly well. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about when you're burnt out from zone two, what do you do next? And for me, I've always done my training based on VO2 work, FTP work, all that kind of stuff. But what I'm intending to do from these recordings and different posts I'll put out about it is just walk through a bit of my methodology, and I'll also do research in between to back up why I do what I do. But I want to kind of do some proof in the pudding. I've set some goals this year in 2025, in the fitness world wise at least, that I think I'm on track to do pretty well in. But I want to just prove the proof in the pudding. Basically, I want to show that I'm short on time. I'm sure everyone kind of relates to that in this day and age. I feel like that's everyone's favorite excuse. I'm busy. It's the common thing. And that's why I very much rely heavily on a lot of other people's research into what's effective for training, health, fitness, that kind of stuff. We're all, individuals who think we're very, very busy, we're very, very important, all that kind of great stuff. And I'm sure most of us are, don't get me wrong. But the reality is that's just us not putting enough emphasis in and importance on our health. And I think in terms of what you could invest the most into, your health should be the number one thing, more than what you're putting into your stock portfolio, your real estate portfolio, whatever that is. That's great. But without your health, you're nothing at the end of the day. And I'm going to share a bit of my background as a professional, not athlete, but work work person or office person. I will touch a little bit on my athlete background at different points, but in the last probably 3-4 years, I spent a lot of time being a senior level in a pretty big national company in Australia. So I was the definition of time poor, like most professionals are when you get to that senior leadership kind of level. I still am in the senior leadership level as well in my current role, but I'm much more work-life balance focused, and I've started to really prioritize my health. And I'm going to share where I was at probably about 2 years ago in terms of my health. And look, I was 28 for reference. I'm 30 or turning 30 in about, I don't know, maybe a bit too soon, couple of weeks time. But so still technically young, but I've seen enough and I've been around enough people to see how hard it is to get your health back on track when you're post for even 30, but post 40, post 50. So the importance of getting it right now really is what I am focusing on. So I'm going to go into a couple apps I like to use a lot. Strava is the biggest one. Shout out to Strava. I'd love a free account one day. The amount of money I sink into the old premium model, but it's good. It's addictive. I'm someone who needs that. I need gamification. I need level bars. I need different things. I need to see a number moving up. I'm pretty sure every professional athlete has had some form of ADHD. I'm included in that camp, so I'm definitely driven by seeing progress. So this is 20. This is just calendar view. Shout out to my main profile over here, Kay Lewis. If you haven't followed me, jump on, give us a follow. I am targeting a couple things later on, and I'll touch on that later in this video for this year. But looking at my calendar in 2022 is one particular year I want to touch on, and how little I did. That's what I'm sharing. And I'm someone so my background is cycling, always has been. But post me trying to be pro and living all that kind of lifestyle and full-time athlete, all that kind of crap. Not that's crap, but I really dove off a cliff. Like I just didn't particularly prioritize my health. I got a full-time job, joined the real world, as every young athlete has to say when they hang up their wheels. And sunk a lot of time into just different mates, different careers that I took on early on. I worked in the city. I moved to Melbourne and then worked in the city, and I spent a lot of time just drinking, not prioritizing my health, not riding my bike. I hung that up for quite a long time. Didn't walk, didn't run. basically just anything that relates to fitness, I did not do, which was very alien to me. I didn't have a part of my life where fitness wasn't at the forefront of it. So if I go back even to 2001, you'll see that's about the last time I probably spent a bit of time into it. What I just touched on, I know I'm jumping all over the place, but what I touched on is probably more 2018-19 period. I jumped off a cliff. I then joined a fitness related company, and that's when it bumped my priorities back up and quickly became, yes, I want to be fit again. Don't get me wrong, I've always been relative fitness, but I think fitness is very relative, full stop. What my definition is only based off my perception. Everyone has their own story and journey they're going through, which is why my whole start is a bit clickbaity. The idea is any form of fitness is better than none. It always is. That's very true. But I arrived into 2001, and this is where I had a massive career change for me. I ended up switching from my fitness related job, which was probably middle management kind of typical level, into being a general manager, so senior leadership, C-suite, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, we're talking 90 hours, 100-hour work weeks, some ridiculous stuff, and lavish lifestyles, all that kind of crap. So never at home half the time, out at some beautiful restaurant. And I love the experience. It was great. Unfortunately, what the year after shows is that 10 hours in a month and 17 hours in a month also showed, was I went off a bit of a cliff in terms of my actual health journey. So it might not have been the start of the year. I always start with good intentions, new year, new me, all that stuff. I'm in marketing these days, so of course that definitely falls into latching into what I get into. But yeah, in 2022, you can see after those first 3 months, I really went backwards. So I just was not at all. No, I'm a bit in the way, so I'll just move me over this way. But I was not at all focusing on my health. So quickly you can see 14, 15, 4, 18, 6, 5, 1 hour in October spent exercising. Got a question, what the hell was I doing? 3 hours in November and then boosting back up in December. I've always had this trend, December, Jan, Feb. Yeah, look, typically I'm doing something. What happened around this time, like I said, if I touch on just my life, was, yeah, look, I got into a very senior level at work and I loved it, and career became a huge driver for me. It always has been, like whether I was an athlete or not. But yeah, I sunk more time into that and the different kind of networking events and stuff I had to get to, and founder groups I had to be a part of, all that stuff. So that really became my priority at the time. And I think that's a lesson for all of us to learn, to not underestimate prioritizing your health, because it took me, I want to say, to go from here and skip into the year after to 2023, a full year of quote unquote zone two, my definition of zone two, of getting back to a base level of fitness in 2024. And I wouldn't be happy with where I was at the start of 2024. I deem myself as incredibly unfit, but that's my standards, not the textbook definition. Yeah, look, I spent all of 2023 doing a lot of zone two, and that's why now I'm going to bring in another app I love to use. I'll swap me across. This one right here, Social Steps. I spend a lot of time walking suddenly. I also got a dog in that time as well. Shout out to Milo, my 3-year-old now golden retriever. So spend a lot of time walking my dog. I always joke with a few of my mates that it's the fittest golden retriever around, how much it gets walked. But this app really, this is what I needed to make zone two interesting, basically. Because to me, look, zone two, that's something when I was a professional athlete that you do a lot of time off, because you have a lot of time. You need an endurance base, especially in the world of cycling. You've got no choice. You have to do your base work. That's, non-negotiables, we'll say. Then, stopping riding my bike, when it got to going back to fitness, I kind of had this whole redefining myself. What do I like to do? I'm not the best at something anymore. So how do I make it fun? How do I gamify? How do I, in my little bubble, make myself the best of it? Took me a long time to find it, and obviously chasing career, and that came in the middle of it. But I got to shout out to something as simple as this. And I tried all the crypto element versions of things like this. Like, I think there was that Steppen was out at one point, just a few others that have been going as well. None of them hit the radar properly. They were probably too complicated. I'd say, like, it just needed to me, Social Steps, what it did really well was very, very simple and had an element of competition. I just open the app. I see how many steps I've done today. I see what all my mates, shout out to the group I'm in. They're called the potato group. Basically, we're all, the caveat to be in my group is you are a potato. You have to find your own image of a potato and come up with some sort of potatoy name. So I am known as, I'm going to just load up the app now. I'm K-Man actually, sorry, but everyone is a form of their nickname or a potato or something like that. So it's a fun gamified place. And it's just really bagging rights. That's all it is. There's nothing to this. There's no crypto to be made. Um, there's no big reward you're being given other than bragging rights. And my background, bragging rights was always the best thing. And that was pre Strava, to be honest. Pre Strava, bragging rights was just the sign stop sprint when you're out training. I had a fun, go off on a side story here, but had a fun game in the country town I grew up in, and all my mates I'd go out training with. You know, when you're trying to make it into the world tour, you do a lot of kilometers on the road, so you make it as interesting as you can. And any signpost on the side of the road, we started with the hat to be on both sides. That were the amount of points you got. So 100 points, you'd be full gas sprinting for that. There'll be attacks. Like I was never a sprinter, so I'd full attack for these sign sprints. And yeah, it was mayhem. But that's probably the earliest taste of gamifying training for me that I've ever come across, was the sign post sprints. And soon enough, the on both sides wasn't enough, because I was in a rural town, and then when you traveled international as well, it was the same story. There weren't that many around. Typically the towns we go to train in were always very quiet towns, because look, cyclists and cars don't really mix. Anyway, fast forward my story, we eventually added in half points for if there was only one signpost. So if they weren't on both sides of the road, you could still go for them, but you got half the points. I think that's just a good insight to how much gamifying or adding a trivial almost reward. It's not even a reward. It's just at the cafe at the end of your ride, you got to say, I won. Like, that was it. There was nothing you gained out of it. And this is pre-Strava. So this was us having KOMs, basically. That's what this was. Thankfully, Strava came along, because I don't know how long that game would have stuck around. Although I kind of miss it these days. I'd go back and do a couple signpost sprints. It's a hard word to say, phrase that one. Yeah. But anyway, then social steps is the closest thing nowadays to what I relate back to doing then. And the reason why I want to bring it up is, if you're someone who struggles with zone 2 heavily, like I do, like it's not even I struggle to do zone 2. It's boring as hell. Like, I don't see the point to it. I'm not a professional athlete. I don't have 40 hours a week to go training. Why would I spend my 10 hours that are very precious hours, or if you're 8, or if you got 5, or however much it is, why would you spend 4 hours of that doing zone 2? What good is that actually going to do you if you're already a very fit and healthy person? I'm trying to preface it with that though. Because zone 2, compared to doing nothing, sitting there watching the couch, or sitting on the couch watching TV, does a lot. There's enough articles out there. I'll probably link them below in this. Peter Attic is the biggest one, obviously, but there's plenty of other people who are very well versed into the importance of it. But I always say, to me, it makes the most sense to heavily influence your training if you have 20 plus hours a week to do a lot of zone 2, like 75, 80% makes sense. When you're time poor, like all of us are that have a full-time job and career and a family and whatever else you got going on in your life, I think the split's got to look a little bit different. Zone 2 should still be in there. You got to have rest days as well, recovery and all that. You can't be a robot, but you got to do something intense. And I think there's huge importance on it. It's why running is so good for a lot of people. You know, you got to attack the body. It has to have some form of feeling of being attacked almost. Has to be able to be awoken and move through its motions in full. It's like an engine. That's kind of the best example I always relate to in my head, at least, is you don't get a performance car, and athletes, or humans in general, like all of us can become an athlete, and I'd say I think you should experience what that's like, can have an element of a sports car to them, or a hypercar, or a Ferrari, whatever it is. And that is, if you don't run it through its motions, it's going to eventually deteriorate and the engine's going to eat itself. That's just the way it is. And the equivalent of zone two and driving around is your commute to work. Would you drive a Ferrari every single day of the week as your commute to work? You would if you had $1 trillion or $1 billion, whatever it is. Of course you would. But if you knew what harm it was doing to the motor, you would genuinely open it up a bit for a reason. It's good for the motor. I'm not saying you spend all the time there because that's also bad for the motor, but there's a mix that needs to go on. And that's what I'm here to talk about a bit more in this series and how I'm putting that training to good use, which leads me into my main goal right now. And that's the Tour de Brisbane on the 13th of April it is. So I'll go back to my Strava here and we'll take a quick look at what I've been doing to get ready for this big goal. So I have, as it stands, around 3 months, we'll call it, to get ready. But I don't want to just arrive and do the Tour de Brisbane. I've never been someone who likes to just arrive, complete, hey, we're done, that's cool. Nah, I got to win it, I think. Or at least I've got to be in the top 10. The main thing for me, above all else, is qualify for the World Championships because, hey, they're in Melbourne this year. So I'd love to get my spot in the World Fondo Championships for 2025. But you can see here, 2024, a lot better if I move myself across. I started to pick things up. Social steps came in, flashback over to these guys. Social steps came in. So a lot of zone two supporting this outside of this. In here was a career change for me. So that's where things dropped off a bit. I went from being a senior exec, switched over to still in senior leadership, but I focus only on marketing now. So I'm much more just in my lane. But yeah, as you can see, at the start of 2024, at least, I had heavily prioritized my health again. I'd spent a lot more time on the bike, on the legs, like running. I'd only typically, on Strava for me, when you see hours here, it's bike, typically this thing behind me. Sometimes my S works out on the road, or it's running. I don't really count walking as I want to say as a form of exercise because I think that's harsh on people that do. I think it's very valid, it's very fair, and it counts 100%. Just my definition of exercise that I'd put on this list, walking isn't there. That goes on the Steps app, that goes on social steps. But yeah, I spent a lot more time focusing heavily on this, a lot more time on just getting myself into what I'd deem as base shape. And then in December, I decided, you know what, it's time to actually get back into elite shape. So that's when I decided to pick a goal. And that's another thing I'm going to speak on in this series is importance of goals, like actually truly setting a real world thing you want to beat and the importance of wanting to beat, not just arrive and attend and show up, but win, dominate, be the best, that kind of connotations, like the next level, but associating yourself to that tier and the power of that. And then 2025 at the moment, at least, it's only 11th of Jan, 12th of Jan at the moment. I've done 16 hours. I'm back at full-time work, unfortunately, or fortunately. But I'm probably on track to do at least a 30-hour month. I'd say 35 even. The other quick things I want to touch on in this is where I currently am at in relation to my fitness level. Now, I've done a ramp test on Monday last week, so this is about a week ago now. And I managed to set a 390 FTP. Now, if you don't know cycling and in the broader fitness audience or running, 390 FTP, equivalent of running, probably I want to say a 5K run, like TT and running. I think or 10K maybe. It's a bit of a longer effort, the FTP. We'll go 10K. It's equivalent of definitely a sub 40. Runners, correct me if I'm wrong. I want to go close to 30 flat even to do a 390 FTP. So it's up there. It's pretty decent. When I was racing, it was unfortunately or fortunately for me in the 400s. I don't know how much training I'm going to do to get it back. And I don't mean just scraping the 400s. It was like about 420 or so. I'm not intending to hit those numbers. And I'm also not intending to get to that level of lean either. That's just not healthy. But I want to get myself maybe base of 400, maybe my weight. My weight currently is 80, 81-ish, somewhere around there. I want to get to 77. So if I was 477, I think that's enough to do rather well at Tour de Brisbane. But yeah, at the moment, this is my base. This is where I'm at with 3 months to go. I've got 390, I've got 81 kilos. That's what I've got. I know right now, and this is what I'm going to get into probably in the next week's vlog. But I know right now I could arrive at Tour de Brisbane. I'm in okay form. I'm going to break down a little bit more in next episode because this one's already been 20 minutes, but a little bit more into what did I do to get to 390? Like that's an elite number, no? Most people would put it in the elite camp. How did you just get to 390? How is that even possible? I'll give you a quick hint or too long didn't read. I do have a bit of a background in the sport, so that's probably a bit of a cheat code, but I definitely haven't just magically produced talent and somehow stood on the pedals and 390 appeared. No, it was a lot of big bit of work. And then the other big ride I did this week, some efforts. So I did 3 big efforts up the main hills in Zwift. Shout out to Zwift, big platform for me. Most of us are time poor. Like I said, it's a platform for the time poor. I did 3 big efforts up 3 big hills in Zwift. So I did the Epic Com reverse, I did the grade com, and then I did the Epic Com forward, as well as the radio tower. I was a little bit cracked by the time I got to the radio tower, but I set pretty decent times for me on those KOM. So my second best ever up the reverse side of the Epic KOM. My second best ever time on the upper portion of the grade. My third best time, I think it was, on the grade KOM, or maybe it was my fourth best time. It was competitive. I know that from memory. I did a 12:14, sat around 365 FTP. 365 watts, and not anything crazy, but definitely on. And then backed it up with the 20-minute 51 up the Epic Com, which for me, it's probably about my 20th best. I've done this route a lot. I would love to get this to probably 18 minutes on the same route. So it's the second to last climb you hit. That would tell me I'm ready. The other quick thing I want to touch on, because a lot of people probably put their nose up at Strava as a training tool, is I do use this one, Training Peaks. You'll see some of my runs are in here as well. I use it quite a lot because it's just that more data-focused version of Strava. And I'll go into why a bit more in the next episode, but yeah, look, this Training Peaks is a very good tool if you're just looking at, I'll try to move myself over into the middle there, there we go. If you're just trying to look at raw metrics, you do need a basic understanding of what these data and numbers and that kind of stuff, what it all even means. I don't sync all of my performances across to here either, but overall, a fitness level from, at least when I was racing, I know this kind of stuff, a fitness level of 78, I'm in good shape. I'm okay. Like I said, right now I could go to Tour de Brisbane. I need to get top 25% to qualify for Worlds. I think I could tick that box right now. If all I did was not stop, but just maintain my level, go back to doing 200K a week, probably 6-7 hours max a week. Pretty easy to do, pretty easy to manage. Yeah, I could get there. And my fatigue is a bit high, I'll be honest. Today's ride, I was a bit cooked. I got a bit gassed. And then yeah, over here is like I said, I use Strava the most to keep myself motivated. And that's kind of the big theme for me in my fitness journey. And like I said, I'm trying to share things that work really well for me. And what keeps me heavily motivated to keep training. I think I'm on week 7, 8, maybe even 9 now of doing at least 6 active days a week minimum. That's my commitment to myself. I'm going to put it on camera now as well, so I make sure I really stick to that. But 6 active days a week. It has to be at the moment a ride, because my first and focused goal is a ride. So I'm sticking to the bike for now. But yeah, look, Strava is a great way to keep myself honest for that. Try and get some KOMs, some maybe races on Zwift, that kind of stuff. Always good fun. All right, so that's been it for this episode. Next, what I'm intending to do with this, at least with my Louie logs, is I want to release these once a week. I'm going to pop them across on my social media. So on LinkedIn, if you know me, I'd never post on there. So this is my way of first time posting on there. I think I chop this up a bit for Reels, and I'm going to give the Threads app a go, which I've never had before. So we're going to give that a roll. Comment below though in any of those if you're coming across this, what you're kind of hoping to see. Like I said, I've chosen the sport of cycling to get myself into really good fitness shape, but there's going to be running in the middle of the year as well. Maybe some swimming as well will come in there. I'm trying to make this like cycling's the mode that I've chosen. I'm trying to make this more fitness focused than just a cycling centric vlog, basically. I don't want to only talk about cycling. I'm just showcasing how I use that to get myself into good shape. And I'll be presenting a bit more data or research into why I do some of the things I do. I tend to be, if those that know me, I tend to ride very hard a lot of the time. Like I'm the inverse of the VO2. Inverse of zone two that I said earlier, like 75-80% of your rides should be zone two. At least if you're a professional athlete. I'm probably the other side. 80% of my rides are FTP VO2 and then 20% are recovery, maybe zone two. That's just because I get bored. Like I get so bored in zone two. If my heart rate's not making me hurt, I don't feel like I'm doing anything. I need to lift the intensity. But I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to use research into what is best for me. So what I'm intending to do with this log is showcase what I've read, put it into action, showcase my results, and then tweak it off that. So you guys maybe can skip the guinea pig stage and I can be the guinea pig for you. But yeah, I mean, the big things at the moment that are obviously working well for me that I wanted to touch on in this episode was gamification, making, whether it's zone two, a VO2, whatever, a little fun recreational ride with your mates, making it fun. So it's a chocolate prize, don't get me wrong, but it's a prize. There's something at the end to say you're better than someone else. I think that's very important. The want to be better than someone else is good to have. Whether you do it this ride or the next ride or this run or the next run, or at some point it's something to work towards. And that's worked really well for me ever since I got back on the bike or back into running or back in the pool or for a while there into the gym, whatever it was. For me, the want to do better than, whether it's my mates or just myself, a lot of the time looking at myself in the mirror or looking at my numbers on a computer screen, Garmin for those in the cycling world, that was enough for me to go, I want to be better than that. That's not good enough. That's not my standard. I want to lift that. But yeah, let me know below what you would like to see in next week's episode. I'm going to release these every Sunday, just do the recording and post them out. And if you haven't already given us a follow, I'm going to put my social medias in the link below. This will be posted on YouTube. Typically, that's the main place I'm going to be posting these. And I'll share that out everywhere. All right, guys, peace out. And I'm pretty excited for my semi-elite, we'll call it, semi-elite fitness journey in 2025.